All right, Totem Bowl Nations, Lambo's Water Sports. We're finally into the NFL, and we got a lot of talk, okay, about those Cowboys. Okay, the Cowboys blew the Giants out 40-0. I've already said the game won't even worth watching. You know why the game won't worth watching? Because when I made this thumbnail for this video, I put Cowboys destroyed Giants in NFC East battle. I put this in the second quarter. The game was not worth watching last night, but the defense did excellent, by the way. Excellent defense. A pick six, a blocked field goal. I don't know what happened in the second half because I didn't watch it. I didn't care. It was not worth my time. It was not worth my product. The Cowboys destroyed the Giants. Go ahead, Cowboys fan. Go ahead and rant because I got a comeback to say on that one.
Thank you very much, sir. So here's where I will start. I think going into the season, we already knew that Dallas's defense was a top 3 defense in the league just based off of statistics from last year. And all we did was add weapons to the defense, and they showed out. Now, granted, they played in a monsoon last night, so that is set up perfectly for defenses to do well. My issue is, why didn't the Giants defense do well? So, at the end of the day, I won't go too much into it because we all watched the same game. We just destroyed them, and I will soak that in for as long as I can until we get into a tougher part of our schedule. Tony Pollard on offense, still 5 yards a carry, just like he was doing last year. He was the only running back last year to have over 5 yards a carry with less than, I think, like 300 or no, less than 200 attempts last year. So he kept it going in the direction that we thought he was going to, being the number one guy. Rico Dowdle, great running back 2, very serviceable as a running back 2. And we started using Kayvon Turpin out of the backfield, which I think is a genius move by McCarthy, just because last year, we brought him in as a receiver, as a kick returner, and he did well returning kicks, but he just did not do well as a receiver. So using him out of the backfield as a guy to use on options, as a guy to use on pitches, stuff like that. He scored a touchdown on a pitch. CD does CD things in a game where passing really wasn't the emphasis. Granted, it was raining like Hurricane Katrina out there. So I'm not going to, knock on either quarterback for inaccuracies. But the defense of Dallas really, really showed up. Dak, he managed it well. He didn't put any balls in harm's way. And we lost Lambo again. So I'll keep going on my Cowboys rant because I am a Cowboys fan. You'll hear this enough throughout the season, so I won't harp on it too much. Trey Lance, I think, is a good guy to bring in for the amount of money. The amount of value that we gave up for him. Anytime you can give a 4th round pick to get a a number 3 overall draft pick, do it. Why not? His contract isn't out of this world or anything. Just because of the new CBA, they don't give those high draft picks anything crazy. But at the end of the day, man, this was just a game of demolition. Our defense, Michael Parsons went crazy. Trayvon Diggs was responsible for 2 turnovers. We got Scott in the comments here asking me if I miss Ezekiel Elliott. Trust me, brother, I love Zeke. But at the end of the day, if we can get Tony Pollard cooking like he cooked last year as our number 1 guy, I wish Zeke nothing but the best out there. But give me Tony Pollard. Give me a guy that's in his prime. Give me a guy that's cheap, a guy that's not going to be taking over our cap room like Zeke did, getting paid like $16 million a year or something like that. Like, we can get more talent in the room, on the offensive side of the ball and defense. You bring in Stephon Gilmore. He's not a cheap player. He made a pick last night. Trey had the forced fumble. He's the one that knocked the ball out of the dude's hand for Bland to catch the pick 6. Obviously, we have the blocked field goal to start the game. There was nothing but, and I watched every second of it. I didn't care how bad it looked. I watched every single second of this game because I'm going to relish in success when I see. No, I don't miss Kellen. Dude, Scott, you're my man right now. I don't miss Kellen Moore either, brother. Me me and Lambo talked about this last week. Kellen was responsible for very high-scoring offenses, but if you look at his play designs, he's got hitches every other play, just dudes running 3-step hitches, 3-step slants. And once a defensive coordinator catches on to that, you can put guys in zone flats to then jump those routes. And that's what you saw on a few picks last year from Dak. So I'm not going to harp on it too much. I know everyone's not a Cowboys fan like me. So, I'll let you take over from here, but just trust me when I say this is probably the happiest I've been as a Cowboys fan since we destroyed the Vikings last year, like 40-3 or something like that at home.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm gonna lighten all these
keep going, but I'm already 5 minutes into my rant. So like I could keep going and just keep naming stats off and stuff like that, but I won't. I'll let it go.
See, America. Me, Stephen A, and Shannon Sharp are the biggest Cowboy haters in America. Now, the question is not really the question. My team's the Patriots, by the way, but I'll talk about that next because I'm mad about the Patriots. But it's okay. I'm not a crazy fan. Like I'm not a crazy loser like Cowboys fan. But I'll explain that later. Ladies and gentlemen, the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, are you surprised that they beat the Giants? No. Is it the biggest statement in the NFL? No, it ain't the biggest goddamn statement. Daniel Jones is not the answer. Daniel Jones is paid $140 million in guaranteed money for what? He way overworth his value. He's not good. The Giants are only good with defense and running the ball. They couldn't run the ball with Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones threw a bad interception, rolling to the right on the sideline, and he threw a pick. Ladies and gentlemen, the Cowboys had tremendous stats. I think they had, a lot of turnovers last night. But I think overall, since Dan Quinn has become defensive coordinator, I think they had about 70-plus takeaways. I think that's the most since the Steelers back in the 70s. When they won Super Bowls. They won 4 of them in the 70s. They won 6 overall. But here's the problem that I have. And Cowboy fans, you can sit here and smile and get all happy. How about those Giants? How about those Cowboys? That's like the only thing in your vocabulary that come out your mouth, especially the day at work. Y'all picture, you see what the Cowboys did? It's the Giants. Okay? Dak Prescott has 11 straight wins against the Giants. Okay? We don't care. It's the Giants. I'm not stupid enough to pick the Giants over the Cowboys. Oh, well, Dan Orlovsky is. He picked the Giants to beat the Cowboys. I don't know where you saw that from. I don't know what you saw there. That was bad. I'm not sold on the Cowboys because here's why. I'm sold on the defense. I'm really sold. The defense has always been good. But see, I'm just going to be patient. Be patient. Because all this hype and all this noise, all this hype is coming up. Just be patient. Be patient. Because it don't come down just to the defense. It going to come down to Dak Prescott. What Dak Prescott is going to do in the playoffs. Now, I don't want the Dallas Cowboys to lose early because it's not fun when they lose early. It's fun when they lose later, when the expectations keep going higher and higher and higher. When they win 12 games and they're close to the number 1 seed and they lose to a team they're not supposed to beat or they bench their players or funny things happen. You got guys like Michael Irvin shouting and praising Jesus over the Dallas Cowboys, but they hadn't won nothing. I respect Michael Irvin. He's a great Hall of Famer. But this is not the 1990s Dallas Cowboys. This is the 2020 Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboy fans will come up with every excuse. Ladies and gentlemen, do you understand that Mike McCarthy's calling plays this year? So if Mike McCarthy don't make the right plays, what's going to happen? Oh, let's fire Mike McCarthy. It's not Dak Prescott. Some of you Cowboy fans are going to ignore the Dak Prescott issue. The defense is great, but when you ask the defense about Dak Prescott, they're going to say, they're not really confident about Dak Prescott. They won't tell you to your face, but they're not that confident about Dak Prescott.
You're pulling stuff out of your butt.
No, I'm not pulling nothing. They're not that confident coming to Dak Prescott. Now, are they a worse team when they don't have him? Yes, they are a worse team when they don't have him. I've said that. But when it comes to pressure, when it comes to exceed expectations, when y'all saying he's going to turn the ball over less, it just makes the expectations go higher and higher and higher. The last time I checked, the Dallas Cowboys against teams above 500 is not a very good record above teams above 500. They could beat anybody in their own division. The Commanders aren't good. The only competition is the Eagles. Okay, the Eagles even somewhat fumbled yesterday. That's a different story for later. When it comes to expectations about those Dallas Cowboys, they are going to fold. The Dallas Cowboys have no chance of winning the Super Bowl this year. I say this every year. I've been right for the past 12 years. The Dallas Cowboys have no chance of winning the damn Super Bowl. They don't. Y'all keep saying they're going to win the Super Bowl this week 1. We're going to the Super Bowl. Every game y'all play, we're going to the Super Bowl. Week 13, we're going to the Super Bowl. Week 16, we're going to the Super Bowl. No, because Dak Prescott is going to fail you towards the end. Just wait, Dallas Cowboy fans. Get hype about this win. Get loud all the way until Saturday night. But when you have to play Aaron Rodgers and those Jets, Aaron Rodgers knows Mike McCarthy. And Mike McCarthy, he going to fold. What happened in that game last year? When Green Bay was down 28-14, and that was not a good Green Bay team last year, by the way. That was a terrible Green Bay team last year, and the Cowboys found a way to lose. What happened when they found a way to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars? They had no business winning the game. Something tragic is going to happen to the Dallas Cowboys organization. Something is going to happen. Dallas Cowboy fans, get hyped. Just wait. Just wait till next week. Just wait until week 4 when you lose to my Patriots. Just wait till next Sunday when you lose to those Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Just sit there and wait. We don't care that you beat the Giants. That's great. Just wait, because the Dallas Cowboys have no chance of winning the Super Bowl this year, as long as Dak Prescott is the quarterback.
So I'm obviously disagreeing. My first question for you, so you know me very well as a Cowboys fan. I'm not one of the guys that comes out every year and says we're gonna win the Super Bowl. That's not me. That's not what I do. We've never had a defense this good since like 2014, maybe. We haven't. It's 9 years now. We have not had a defense this good. And so my first question to you, what do you think the Patriots are bringing on offense that's going to be able to get by our defense? I don't know.
Wait, let me answer the question. The Patriots have good receivers. Now, when we get into this next game, wait. Ho. We beat ourselves yesterday, okay? We didn't catch the ball. We fumbled the ball. Zeke fumbled the ball as soon as he got it. We made mental errors that beat us. The Eagles weren't that good. 1 touchdown and 6 field goals. That's great defense. Jalen Hurts struggled. I mean, come on now. Now, the question about your offense. 2 tight ends, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry. I mean, we were blowing by the Eagles secondary. I'm not comparing the Eagles secondary to the Cowboys secondary, but Mac Jones looked pretty impressive despite, the horrible holding penalties and all this other stuff. That'll rain on later. The receivers will easily get passed by the corners. Now, man, yeah, he will. Oh, wait. Hey, here's why I say that. Remember when we played y'all in 2021? We didn't have this. We had worse receiving core than what we had this year. That was a worse receiving core. Y'all had about the same defense, except you added Stephon.
No shot.
You had Stephon. You didn't have Stephon Gilmore, but you had Trey Diggs.
You didn't have the safety depth.
But my point is, you might not have a safety, but you basically had the same amount of players except for 2 guys, except for Gilmore and a safety. But my point is, to answer your question about the offense, we had a worse receiving core in 2021. Josh McDaniels last year's offensive coordinator, when he played y'all week 4, that was a worse receiving core. With Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar, that was a worse receiving. That was Kendrick Bourne was still on the team, but he was like our number 1. But that was a worse receiving core than what we have this year. That's a worse receiving core. 2021 compared to now was the worst receiving core for the New England Patriots. New England Patriots this year have a better receiving core. You got Juju, you have Bourne, you have Tyquan Dory, you got Douglas, unless he didn't drag his foot in yesterday, which I was very pissed off. They got 2 tight ends, Jajeski, they got Hunter Henry, Zeke Elliott, Ramondre Stevenson, and we can run the ball on y'all, and we can throw screens on y'all. I promise you, we will beat y'all. That's the answer to your first question.
We already got money on it. And
$50 gonna be mine on October.
Just as an FYI, we beat y'all in 2021.
Okay, that's fine. You know why you beat us? Because Mac Jones threw a pick 6. That's what happened. He threw a pick 6 when he was up 21-20. If he wouldn't throw that pick, the game was over. He threw a pick. I know we came right back at y'all and Trayvon Diggs, and he, got burned on the slant route. But it's not 2021. This is not Mac Jones' rookie year. We went 10-7 and made the playoffs and got blown out by the Bills. This is a different Patriots team. The Patriots will conquer. They will beat the Cowboys. It don't matter what. We understand it's in Dallas, Texas. We understand it's a home game for the Cowboys. But you're not playing the Giants. You're playing a good defense that only allowed the Eagles to 1 touchdown, 6 field goals. And we hold y'all to field goals, and we can still score touchdowns. Yeah. And by the way, our offensive line is way better than the Giants. Come on now. Yeah. It's way better than the Giants' offensive line. And the defense. The defense is not really up there. And your offensive line, your left tackle, right tackle, you better stop Matt Judon. You better stop him. Because he's had 15.5 sacks for the past 2 seasons from the Baltimore Ravens. Which that brings into the Patriots and the Eagles. I am pissed about this game. Ladies and gentlemen, the Patriots deferred. They held the Eagles to 3 points. Mac Jones throws a pick 6. That's 10-0. All of a sudden, they score a touchdown at 16-0. Beginning of the second quarter, 16-14 at halftime. We scoring the ball. We got Bill O'Brien back as the offensive coordinator. I think we've done some amazing things. Even though we lost and beat ourselves, we moving the ball. I mean, last year we were last in red zone percentage, red zone touchdowns. We were last in the NFL. But at least the Patriots were able to move the ball. At least we could move the ball down the field. Our problem is in the third quarter we had a potential way to drive. We had 2 holding penalties. Now I don't think the first one was holding, but the second one might have was. I'm not sure. Debatable. Could we kick a field goal? Some say yes, some say no. I say no because the Eagles have a really good offense. We didn't want to kick field goals against the Eagles. You know how Belichick works. Against good teams like the Eagles, Cowboys, Chiefs, you don't want to kick field goals. You had to go for it. So we went for it on 4th and 8 or 4th and 12 and didn't get it. Early in the game, we dropped a lot of balls. Juju dropped the easy pass. The tight end dropped the pass. Mac Jones threw a bad ball. The defensive performance, we got beat on some plays. A.J. Brown got shut down all the way until the 4th quarter. Devontae Smith, he had catches here and there, but nobody was really explosive on the offensive end. The Eagles did struggle. You lose your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. By the way, the Eagles secondary did get torched despite the Patriots turnovers. They got torched. Mac Jones threw some beautiful balls. I think Kendrick Bourne had about 2 touchdowns for reception and somebody else had 1. So the Eagles secondary looks really, really shaky if you were watching the game. We just beat ourselves. We had 2 turnovers. And by the way, Jalen Hurts did fumble the ball, and we still had a chance to win. The Eagles went for it on 4th and 2. We stopped them. We still had a chance to win. So guess what happened? The Eagles weren't that good. The Patriots beat themselves. That's why we lost. The score was 25-20. So that tells you you didn't kick a field goal. You beat yourselves. By the way, we have a rookie kicker, so we don't have Nick Folk no more. So I guess Belichick didn't trust a kicker. 4th and 11, we got the ball back. He didn't drag his foot in bounds, which is very huge and really pissed me off. He didn't drag that left foot down. Imagine if he did, we would have won. The Eagles gave away this game, or they gave us the game. We just couldn't take advantage of it. That's literally what yesterday's game was. I am not into moral victories. Somebody told me give Patriots a moral victory. I said, fuck that. I'm not with the moral victory shit. We should have won the game. But I am proud that we're able to move the ball offense, which brings me confidence. But I am nervous on next week's game because we played the Miami Dolphins on Sunday night. Tua threw for 466 yards, and this is not Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. We're dealing with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. So I'm very nervous as of right now. Now the question is, am I still mad about the loss? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not watching the highlights on it, but the Patriots have some hope. They do have a tough schedule. They do play the Dolphins, then they play the Jets, then they play the Cowboys, then they play the Saints. It's I think we have the hardest schedule or the second hardest schedule in NFL, but I don't really care about that. But at the same time, the Patriots do have some potential on the offensive end. What did you think about this game?
Yeah, like you said, the Pats had a chance. Boot, the dude that didn't drag his foot, that's a rookie mistake. Growing pains like that are going to happen in rookies. It's just super unfortunate that it happened at the end of the game, like when the game is on the line like that. The Eagles won a lot of games like this last year. Like they won on a game-winning scramble with Jalen Hurts against the Colts, who were one of the worst teams in the league last year. So like this isn't out of the ordinary for the Eagles. They just found ways to win these tight, ugly games. The Patriots defense played awesome, only allowing 18 points against, the highest scoring offense in the league last year. But one of my biggest takeaways was Mac throwing the ball 54 times. I don't expect that to continue to that extent throughout the year, especially when you have Ramondre back. When you've got two running backs in the backfield, I don't think you need Mac to throw the ball 54 times, and it'll take some pressure off of him. So, like you said, the Pats had every opportunity to win the game, and they just fell short, and that's how it goes in the NFL sometimes, especially against the Eagles, who just found a way to win so many games like this last year, and it really just pisses me off, given that it's them, the Niners, and really I think those are the only two teams that Dallas really needs to worry about to compete for that top seed in the NFC. So, I don't like seeing the Eagles win games like this, but it just seems to be in their wheelhouse. They just come away with these sneaky wins. They did it all last year, and it seems like they're starting this year doing the same thing. It was encouraging to see the Patriots play the way they did, but it was a bad bounce, man. Just an unlucky loss.
You know who else the Cowboys have to worry about in the playoffs? The Rams. Because the Rams will be back in the playoffs this year. But next game, we're going to do our recaps. The Ravens do beat the Texans, but J.K. Dobbins is out for the season with an Achilles injury. And the Ravens got a new offensive coordinator, Todd Monken. They did somewhat struggle, by the way. Mark Andrews didn't play either. So the starting tight end didn't play. J.K. Dobbins is out with an Achilles injury. They did somewhat struggle with no tight end presence. What did you think about the Ravens? And I'm not sure if OBJ had a catch either.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like we were saying when we were previewing the game earlier. I was really hopeful that the Ravens didn't, rely on the pass too much, which it seems like they were going that way a little bit at the beginning, but they settled in with the run game. Losing JK is huge. Now, obviously, they lost him last year too, and they still found a way to be competitive. Gus Edwards and Justice Hill have proven that they're good, serviceable backups. But if you want this Ravens team to make a run in the playoffs, especially in a stacked AFC, bring in Kareem Hunt. That was my biggest takeaway from the J.K. Dobbins injury. Obviously, he's done for the year. Feel awful for the guy, especially in a contract year. Kareem Hunt needs to be a Raven today. Today, he needs to be on the Ravens. Lamar didn't play super well, neither did CJ, but this is CJ's first game ever in the NFL. He just got thrown into the fire as a rookie playing week one. And you never see rookies playing week one go out and just amaze people, and like the top QBs in the league today, they all sat besides Dak, which that wasn't supposed to be like a Cowboys leaning thing. I'm just going off of like the top 10 to 12 quarterbacks in the league. Almost all of them sat, at least a year. So to see CJ go out there and not, like, he didn't give the game away. They didn't lose because of him. It was encouraging. And yeah, I was just glad that the Ravens stuck to their guns, stuck to what they're good at running the ball. Even with the new OC, I think he recognized against the scouting report. This is exactly what I was saying last week too. The pass defense for the Texans wasn't the issue last year. And, they got an interception in this game. Like, the pass defense isn't the issue. It's the run defense. So I'm glad that the Ravens stuck to what they did best and ran the ball. And I think that's why they came out with a victory.
Yeah. I mean, I watched that game as well, but it's the second game that I watched. The Commanders versus the Cardinals. They won in my 25-14 parlay. That was 2-0 until somebody else lost, but that's 2-0 for right now. Are the Commanders impressive or the Cardinals stink? Because it was at one point in the game where the Cardinals was up. They were up when Sam Howell fumbled the ball in the end zone when he spun around and got sacked and didn't control the ball correctly. And the Cardinals were up by defensive-wise. The offense wasn't really that impressive to me. They only scored a touchdown, I think, based off they picked it up and scored, diving in the end zone. Are you confident about the Commanders? And do you see any improvement in Arizona despite the tanking allegations?
Yeah, I still think they're tanking. Now, when it comes to organizational tanking, it's very easy for an organization to obviously take their chips off the table, which it seems they did, with the trading away of talent and then, cutting what it seemed to be the only competent quarterback on the roster in Colt McCoy. So, I mean, we've talked about it many times. Like, I still think that the Cardinals are tanking, but dudes are getting paid millions of dollars. They're not going to go out onto the field and just not try. So I think the real thing that raised an alarm to me was how close the game was, given the Commanders are trying to be a playoff team this year, especially in a weaker NFC. Like, I think the expectations are 3 teams from the NFC East are probably going to make the playoffs. Now, obviously 1 and 2 are Eagles, Cowboys, Cowboys, Eagles, however you want to put it. And it was a toss-up between the Giants and the Commanders. Neither one of them looked good. Obviously, we already talked about the Giants, but the Commanders were supposed to be like a team that took another big step. Chase Young still isn't playing, which is very, very worrisome. Obviously, an ACL is nothing to just shake off. You can't just expect him to come back and be this same electric guy that he was, but it's been like a year. He's going to have to touch the field. If the defense of the Commanders is good, that has been the strong suit. That is what has kept them in games the past couple of years, going through the quarterback carousel that they've been going through. And it was just not encouraging to me at all to see how that offense played. Now, Sam, obviously second ever start. You're going to have growing pains. Same thing we talked about with CJ. Same thing I just said with the Patriots game and the wide receiver not dragging his foot. Like, rookies and second-year guys that haven't started, they're going to have growing pains. So I'm not going to jump the gun and say he sucks, because I do think that Sam Howell is a good quarterback and he's going to do good things in this league. But yeah, I mean, I did not expect this game between a team that's got a good amount of weapons on offense. I mean, Terry McLaurin, arguably top 10 receiver in the league. Jahan Dotson, really good up-and-coming guy. Logan Thomas is a serviceable tight end. He's obviously not a top tier, but he's a guy that he can be your bridge tight end until you get a franchise guy, and he's done that. He gets paid $8 million a year to do that. That's more than running backs are getting paid, And so I just expected this game to be way wider of a margin than it was. But I'm not going to jump the gun and say that the Commanders suck. I think they'll win their share of games. They'll sneak some wins out that they shouldn't win. It's what they do every year, but I don't think that you can just cement that the NFC East is going to have 3 playoff teams anymore, especially considering like what you said with the Rams, like the Rams over there. That we'll get into that later. But just at the end of the day, the Commanders looked underwhelming. I think the Cardinals played over expectations, but it's still clear to me that like they're probably going to have the number 1 pick.
All right, next game, Dolphins versus the Chargers. It was a high-scoring game. Tua had 466 yards passing. Tyreek Hill is the fastest wide receiver in the NFL. He could be up there with one of the best. He is fast. He had 215 yards receiving, 11 receptions. The Patriots going to have to stop that next Sunday night. What did you think of this game? Now, Justin Herbert, he got his numbers. He put up 34 points. Here's my take on this. Brandon Staley's defensive coach. The defense was awful. Mike McDaniel is very creative with Tua, and the Dolphins are a dangerous team when healthy. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This game is, I think, shows how deep the AFC is, because when you're talking about the AFC and those top teams, like you go to the Chiefs first, and then you start shuffling in some of these other guys. And the Dolphins and the Chargers are both teams that could come out, like the Bengals as well. Obviously, we saw them lay an egg, but the Chargers and the Dolphins are both teams that are very capable of making the AFC Championship and going against the right team or having a good week at the right time. Like both of these teams could be in the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, both defenses are going to have to step up a little bit. But when you're going against offenses that are explosive as both offenses are here, I don't think you could expect anything but high-scoring games. And it seems like both teams, even before, Kellen came to the Chargers, like they had a high-scoring offense anyways. Justin Herbert, a little underwhelming in my opinion, 230 yards. He got sacked 3 times. That's not all on him, but I mean, you got to be able to get the ball out a little quicker. I expected a little bit more targets going to Quentin Johnson. He only had 3 targets. But when you've got Austin Eckler that can play, he had 47 yards in the air, 117 yards on the ground. You got to feed him. So I'm not going to knock him or anything like that. But the explosiveness was just a little bit more on the Dolphin side, obviously, with Tua throwing over 400. Tyreek's over 200. And if you have Jalen Waddle as your number 2 receiver, no one's going to be mad at that. That is one of the best number 2 receivers you can have on any team, minus maybe T. Higgins in Cincinnati. So this game is everything I thought it would be. I thought the Chargers would come out in the end, and it just happened to be a 2-point swing in the other direction.
Oh, the game that I was wrong about, the Broncos versus the Raiders. Are the Raiders good? How in the world did the Raiders win this game? I was watching the Patriots game, by the way, so I didn't pay attention to this. How in the world the Raiders win? Are the Raiders good? The Broncos going through some growing pains. I heard that chicken fajitas was part of Sean Payton's plays. Lip syncing chicken fajitas. Are we going to panic about the Broncos, or the Raiders are just one of those teams that wins, I guess? Have they improved as far as not blowing fourth quarter leads?
It's tough because, I mean, like, this is about how much the Broncos offense was scoring every single game last year. They very rarely got over 20 points. Jimmy G did exactly what he was supposed to do. He was 20 for 26, 200 yards. And he spread the ball out well. What was surprising to me was that Jacoby Myers was the leading receiver for the Raiders. Now, that could also just be that Sean Payton is good at game planning. He's a good, he knows who to focus on, and that's Devontae Adams, who they held to 66 yards. The run game for the Raiders was concerning, very concerning. Josh Jacobs ran the ball 19 times, only had 48 yards. That's supposed to be the leader in rushing from last year. Now, obviously, it's the first game, and the Broncos' defense is nothing to laugh at. Like they've got a solid defense. Russ started the game super, super well, and he only had 7 incompletions, so I'm not going to say he played poorly, but you throw the ball 34 times, you got 27 completions and only throwing 177 yards. That's just not how you win in today's NFL. It's not. You can't. We just came off a game where I was knocking Justin Herbert for throwing 230. So like, it baffles me that he's continuing to go down the similar pace. Now, obviously, last year I don't think he had multiple touchdowns in a game until like week 6 or something like that. So it's a step in the right direction for the Broncos in what shouldn't be a rebuild year. Like they should be competitive right away with the defense that they have, and they added Pirine in the backfield to help Javonte, who didn't look. 4 yards a carry, but they only gave the ball to him 13 times. Pirine 5 yards a carry. They only gave him the ball 8 times. Like, I think if you want to win, especially with the defense heavy team like that, you got to be able to keep the defense off the field with sustained drives, and you do that through the run. And only running the ball 22 times is not the way to do it. And honestly, it was only 21 design runs. The other one was a Russ tried to scramble. He only got a yard off of it. So it's kind of clear that Russ isn't going to be that mobile QB that he used to be. Receiving, they got to figure something out, man. They lost their tight end. He didn't come back into the game after he got hurt. Pirine was their leading receiver with 37 yards. Yeah, 4 receptions, 37 yards, and that's their leading receiver. Cortland Sutton obviously had a touchdown, but I don't think Jerry Jeudy had a catch. And then they've just got to, like I said, Dulcich got hurt. He didn't come back in. They got to figure something out on the offensive side of the ball, or they're going to lose more games like this for the rest of the year. I do think, like you said, it was a step in the right direction for the Raiders, not blowing fourth quarter leads. But I think that speaks more to Jimmy G just being able to manage the game a little bit better than what they've had in the past with, Derek Carr trying to go out and win games. And sometimes he loses them because he's trying to do too much. Jimmy's not a guy that's going to try and do too much.
This is the game that blew my 14 parlay for $25K. The Browns and the Bengals. Yeah. What in the world happened to the Bengals? Joe Burrow was 14 of 31, 33 for 82 yards. Jamar Chase called the Browns elves.
Elves.
Elves. And still managed to call them elves after the game. What happened here? Now I understand the Bengals are not known for starting off fast. Last year they started off 0-2. They lost to Pittsburgh. Joe Burrow threw 5 interceptions. And they lost to the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. They were 0-2. I'm not panicking about the Bengals, but it's just a fraudulent game. Was the Browns supposed to whoop the Bengals like this? Now I wouldn't be surprised if they won, but they won 24-3. Are you telling me Joe Burrow was the highest paid quarterback? You want to give me 82 yards passing? Hello? Is Deshaun Watson back? What happened?
No, Deshaun's not back. He only threw 150 yards. And I know you saw, did you see that interception he threw?
No.
It was a duck. The receiver was probably 20 yards out and he threw the ball 12 yards and just right into the defender's hands. It was bad. I mean, both quarterbacks played awful. Nick Chubb was doing Nick Chubb things, 5.9 yards a carry, 106 yards. And, obviously they didn't really need it here, but I think losing Kareem Hunt is going to be big for them going forward. They don't really have anybody behind Chubb. Jerome Ford's fine, but they gave him the ball 15 times. He only had 2.5 yards a carry. And you can say that's because the Bengals D-line is really good and they have been in the past couple years, but it's the same D-line that Nick Chubb was torching for 6 yards a carry. So it's not, it's obvious that the talent behind Chubb went down it just didn't matter in this game because Joe couldn't get anything going at all. He threw under 50%, obviously only 82 yards. The run game was stagnant. They didn't really have anything going there. Joe Mixon only ran the ball 13 times, which in a pass-heavy offense like the Bengals have transitioned to in the past few years is not the most surprising thing. But to me, it was more surprising that they just continued to try to throw the ball so much when it's obvious that nothing was clicking. He was getting 4.5 yards a carry. That's tremendous. And they just didn't feed him at all. Jamar, 5 catches, 39 yards, like nothing to write home about. And, you can't even say it's because Joe didn't go through training camp. Joe, since he's been in the league, has never gone through training camp, like preseason stuff. First year was COVID, so there was none. Second year, he was still rehabbing. And what was last year? I don't know. But he didn't go through a training camp at all since he's been in the NFL. So you can't even put it on that, It was an embarrassing outing. Joe is also my starting quarterback in 2 fantasy leagues. So he let me down there big time. And I got Jamar in a league as one of my wide receivers that obviously didn't come to anything at all. So it was an embarrassing loss. I also lost money on this game. And we both got it wrong in our predictions for our official record keeping for this year. So, there's not much to talk about. It was an ugly game, both sides of the ball. The Browns just looked less ugly than the Bengals.
Yeah, well, my fantasy, I hope I win tonight, but I know somebody I'm going against has Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. I picked the Bills to win, so I hope they can get some turnovers and go down just a little bit because Justin Herbert didn't give me that many points. And Brock Purdy almost got me more points than Justin Herbert did, and I put Brock Purdy on the bench. So we'll see how that goes along the ways. The shocking game, we were both wrong. The Bucs and Baker Mayfield beat the Vikings at Minnesota. Justin Jefferson has over 150 yards receiving, and they still took an L. What in the world? Is Baker Mayfield back? Baker Mayfield. Oh, my God. Is Baker Mayfield back, or should we be concerned about the Vikings?
So the thing is, these are the games last year that the Vikings would pull off just a last-second dub, and that's how they got to 13 wins. They would be out of games or they'd be in tight games like this against, honestly, lesser opponents, but they would find a way to win. And I think, obviously, it's just week 1, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I do think that at this point, the defense is catching up, the lack of defense, I should say. Their defense is bad. Baker did his game managing thing, which is what me and you both expected going into it. He's more of a game manager at this point in his career than we expected him to be, a little bit more than that. But he managed the game perfectly. 2 touchdowns. The running game was not there for the Bucs at all. Now, obviously, the O-line has taken a step back from what it was a couple of years ago. But, 2.3 yards a carry for Rachaad White, for a dude who everyone I talked to, at least, and everything that I was reading, everyone was high on Rachaad White, and he didn't play well. Baker spread the ball out well, 6 receptions for Mike Evans, 5 for Chris Godwin, and then 2 for Cade Otton, 2 for Rachaad White, 2 for Devin Tompkins, 2 for Sean Tucker, 2 for Trey Palmer. You have to be able to spread the ball out like that if you want to win games in today's passing NFL. Obviously, 173 yards isn't going to get it done every week, but in a week where your defense, in the second half, I should say, really stepped up, it was enough. JJ had 117 of his 150 in the first half. So they really you can't really lock up Justin Jefferson, but they limited him enough to where they were able to get the job done. Baker showed why all of his teammates always like him. To game on the line, to finish the game, he goes down, puts his shoulder and his head down, gets the first down, game over. So I really think it speaks a lot to, just Baker being a serviceable game manager. And it speaks a lot to how the Vikings defensive shortcomings are going to catch up to him this year.
You were right about this next game, the Falcons versus the Panthers. I thought the Panthers had a chance of squeezing in the third quarter. The Falcons somewhat pulled away. Bryce Young did have 2 interceptions, by the way. I don't think the Falcons are that good, by the way. The Falcons do play the Green Bay Packers, which we'll talk about later, how the Green Bay whooped up on those Bears. But what do you think of the Falcons versus the Panthers game? It was a very close game until the end. It was 7-7 and it was 10-10. What did you think of this game overall?
I wanted the Panthers to run the ball more. I don't think that there's a reason to give your starting quarterback first game in the NFL to make him throw the ball 40 times. Like first time seeing a live defense. Now, obviously you have like the joint practices and whatever, but game speed is something else. Like guys can go as fast as they want in training camp and in preseason. Game speed is just a different level. And to make your rookie quarterback throw the ball 40 times is just not how you win those games at all, especially when your running game was doing as well as it was. I mean, Miles Sanders, 4 yards a carry. He had 72 yards. Chuba Hubbard, 6.7 yards a carry. He had 60 yards on 9 attempts. So, I mean, I think it was right in front of him for the taking. Now, like the Panthers defense played well. Drake London had 0 catches. Desmond Ridder only had 115 yards. He only had 3 incompletions, but it's because all of his passes were screens and checkdowns. You know, like they had the game, I think, in hand. They had it where they wanted to, and they just put too much pressure on Bryce Young.
This was a good game. The Titans versus the Saints. I picked the Saints to win this one. You probably did too. I thought the Saints was going to lose this game. That was part of my parlays, but the other games was knocked out anyway. This was a game that I was scared of. The Saints pulled off. They had one of the receivers that went for 100 yards receiving. The run game was average. Ryan Tannehill did throw 3 interceptions. Are we calling for a quarterback debate right now or a quarterback controversy between him and Malik Willis now?
Well, it's just tough. I mean, they know better than us because they get to see him in training camp and everything like that, and they get to see him in practice week in and week out. So, like, who knows how much better Malik Willis would even be? But Ryan Tannehill looked so awful. And I mean, we talked about it last week too, how like by midseason, it wouldn't be surprising if he's gone. I don't even know if he's going to last till midseason if he's playing like that. I mean, if he plays like this next week, he could be done by week 3. Now, if he's done by week 3, I'm going to have to trade DeAndre Hopkins off my fantasy team because this was ugly, man. It was ugly. And you only gave the ball to Derrick Henry 15 times. Since when? Since when do you ever do that as the Titans, bro? Even in a game where he really wasn't popping off, he was still getting 4.2 yards a carry. The backup, Tajay Spears, he's a rookie, I think, out of Tulane. 9 yards a carry. Traylon Burks, they had him run once, 9 yards on that gain. Like, you can't. This is the exact same thing that we just talked about before, except for the difference is Ryan Tannehill is on the down part of his career, and it's very clear he's on the down. So why are you having him throw the ball 34 times a game when you have the best backfield in the league, minus maybe the Browns, just based on the consistency of Nick Chubb? But, I mean, Derrick Henry's a top 3 running back still. To this day, he's been a top 3 guy for the past 5 years. So why only have him run the ball 15 times and have Tannehill throw it 34 is beyond me. I think the game was very much in reach. Now, obviously, Olave had a great game, but they stopped the run for the Saints. Jamal Williams didn't do anything, and that's the only running back they ran with was Jamal Williams, and they stopped him. Derek Carr played all right. I mean, 305 yards is good. 23 for 33, good. But he had a pick as well. Like the game was in hand, I think, for the Titans, and they just lost it. All the credit in the world to the Saints. They had a great game in the air, but they had no running attack at all. And I think the Titans could have capitalized on it, and they didn't.
Jaguars versus the Colts. The Colts at one point were leading Jacksonville, and then Jacksonville came back and scored 14 unanswered. Shane Steichen, the new head coach, I think it's a lot of high hopes for Anthony Richardson. He made some pretty impressive plays. He had a turnover, but he made some pretty impressive stuff. Calvin really was the answer of the day. He came back from a 1-year suspension for gambling. Trevor Lawrence to Calvin Ridley, great. Next week's game will be the Chiefs versus Jaguars. That'll be a very good game. What did you think of the Jaguars and Colts? I've seen some very good things to Anthony Richardson despite the loss.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say the same thing every single game, it seems like. He threw the ball 37 times. I don't think that's how you win a game with a rookie quarterback, and especially when an Anthony Richardson, where as talented and gifted as he is, he wasn't the best passer in college. Now, he made impressive throws, definitely made impressive throws, so nothing against him there. But having him throw the ball 37 times is a little crazy to me. Obviously, they don't have a decent running back. Deion Jackson's their starting running back. He had a yard per carry. So, like that speaks for itself. Their leading rusher was Anthony Richardson, and Trevor Lawrence said this after the game, like, you've got all the talent in the world, but you got to be able to protect yourself a little bit more. So I don't think it's sustainable for Anthony Richardson to, run the ball 10 times a game and then also, scramble and make throws where he's getting hit afterwards. And I both of us expected the Jags to win this game. Anthony played way better than I thought he was going to. Alec Pierce was nowhere to be found. 1 reception, 5 yards. He's supposed to be the number 2. Josh Downs, though, he played pretty well for a 5'9" dude out of the slot. Three receptions for 30 yards is okay for your first ever NFL game, going against a defense that is definitely outmatching your offense. Nothing happened in this game that I didn't think would happen. Trevor's interception was a little but he's still, one of the best up-and-coming quarterbacks in this league. He'll have solidified himself, I think, as like a top 7 guy by week 6. And ETN looked great. I mean, really, besides that, nothing happened here that I don't think either one of us thought was going to.
Oh, 49ers versus the Steelers. Mike Tomlin, he's not on the hot seat, but he is under some pressure to get rid of his assistants. Matt Soden, offensive coordinator. Kenny Pickett looked very shaky. The Steelers' offensive line is not good at all. The 49ers are better overall defensively, offensively. Brock Purdy took a shot. He threw it at Patrick Peterson. The Steelers are – what is wrong with the Steelers? Are they getting old? Are we sold on them? Is it a potential that Mike Tomlin will have his first losing season in 17 years? I'm not sold on the Steelers, by the way. I don't think with the offensive play calling this is going to go where they're going to struggle for a very long time. And last year at this point in the season or before, they went from 1-6 or 2-5 to 9-8. I'm not sure it's going to happen again this year after they got whooped. We expect them to lose, but they got whooped.
Yeah.
What happened in this game?
I mean, they were playing 2 different sports out there, dude. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I said on the first show I ever came on, Lambo's World of Sports, my prediction for the year was that everyone was so high on the Steelers. Everyone was talking about how good Kenny Pickett's progression has been and everything like that. And I said I didn't buy it. I don't think he's got it. And it's not all on him. Deontay Johnson went down, but at the George Pickens should be the number 1 guy there anyways, and Allen Robinson is a good number 2. So I mean, obviously losing Deontay Johnson, who is a target merchant, he gets, or especially in years past, he would get 10 targets a game. So losing him is a knock. But Najee didn't play well. They threw the ball 50 times. Which is just not the way that the Steelers, in my memory, have ever played the game, ever. They're always relying on a solid run game to then set up the passing game. And when you've got, Kenny throwing the ball 46 times. He had 31 completions, which, like, statistically, that's a good percentage. But 2 picks, only throwing 230 yards on 31 completions. It just shows you he's throwing a lot of dump offs. He's throwing a lot of screens. And it's not going to work against a team that's as talented as the Niners. And as we've harped on, as every other media company in the world has harped on, the AFC is loaded. Top to bottom, they're stacked. So if you think that this team is going to be able to compete with those top 7 guys in the AFC to even think about getting a playoff spot, I think you're way off base. I just don't think that this team has the talent to do it. And they had injuries, like Cam Hayward got hurt. That's a huge loss to the defense. I don't know how long he'll be out. And obviously Deontay Johnson is a solid wide receiver that they're losing as well. So it wasn't surprising to me that they lost, but it was surprising to see that it looked like the Niners and the Steelers were playing completely different sports.
All right, you were wrong on this one. Packers and the Bears. The Packers and Jordan Love were very, very impressive. The defense got a pick 6. Justin Fields. Should we throw him under the not throw him under the bus, but are we sold on Justin Fields? He has a lot of talent. We expect Justin Fields to be good. We don't expect Jordan Love to do anything. I know it's one game, but Jordan Love, great offensive line, great offensive coach. Justin Fields has a bad O-line, a defensive coach, not very good receivers. Chase Claypool doesn't look like he wants to be there, and their only receiver is DJ Moore.
Yeah, and DJ had 2 catches for 25 yards. The thing, when we talked about this game last week, I was putting the Bears down to keep things interesting so we didn't have so many of the same picks. I didn't think that through. The Bears had the number 1 pick last year for a reason before they traded away. Like, they earned the number 1 pick because they're bad. They're just not a good football team top to bottom. Obviously, Justin Fields has all the talent in the world. He threw the ball at a good percentage, but he's doing the same thing I was just talking about Kenny was doing. It's a lot of screens. It's a lot of check downs, a lot of dump offs. And when we were talking about him a couple of weeks ago, we know that he's capable of throwing screens and dump offs and check downs. Like, we got it. But he's got weapons now on offense. Now, granted, the offensive line isn't what it should be doing, but they've got the weapons and they're not taking advantage of it, in my opinion. They're still basically the same team that got that number 1 pick last year. Now, obviously, they added Edmonds and Edwards in the linebacking room. That was supposed to, stop up the run a little bit. It didn't. The rushing attack for the Packers was fine. They spread it out a lot. 9 carries for Aaron Jones, 5 for Patrick Taylor, 13 for A.J. Dillon. And they were doing whatever they really wanted to, minus A.J. Dillon got stopped up a few times. But I think the real story here is just how much Jordan Love seems to have a grasp on this Matt LaFleur offense. He played great.
Last game that you were wrong on. Rams and Seahawks. The Seahawks only had 1 first down in the second half. Geno Smith said, "Oh shit," when Aaron Donald came rushing at him. The Rams had 2 receivers over 100 yards that weren't named Cooper Kupp. The Rams, by the way, they hired some new assistant coaches, Sean McVay, over the offseason, and Kyron Williams, who's a former Notre Dame running back. They ran the ball pretty well, and Matt Stafford felt comfortable. So what's your thoughts on this game? The Rams are back. They're not going to have to lose the season again.
Yeah. Puka Nacua, their leading receiver, 10 receptions, 119 yards. Tutu Atwell, 6 receptions, 119 yards. I think in my prediction, man, I really just didn't take into account how good Matthew Stafford still is. I let the injuries get the best of me, in my head. I let it led me down the Seahawks path a little bit too much, and I will admit that. this is not the game that I thought I was going to be getting wrong this week. Now, obviously, there's 32 teams, 16 games. You're going to get some games wrong, you know? This just isn't the one that I would have put my prediction in that I was going to get wrong. Cam Akers played like shit. He played bad. But Kyron Williams, you know, filled that gap for him. And you can't speak enough to how much this team needed Matthew Stafford. And as long as he stays healthy, I'm with you. I think this team is definitely getting that 6th or 7th seed for the wild card, getting into the playoffs.
Well,
And sorry, let me get on the Seahawks a little bit, man. They 100 the Seahawks had the number 1 offense in the NFL last year. 112 yards from Geno Smith. Kenneth Walker played well, but they only gave him the ball 12 times. That just can't. I've said this for half the other teams we've talked about in this segment. You can't be giving your number 1 running back 12 carries, 9 carries, like all these numbers I've been reading off. You can't do that if you're expecting to win. You just can't. If you have talent in the running back position and you're not relying solely on your quarterback, which Geno, I think, is a very serviceable quarterback, but he's not a guy that – now, I hope he proves me wrong. I hope he does so well this year. But he's not a guy that's going to go out and win you a game every single week. You've got to be able to rely on your young talent. DK only had 3 catches. Jackson Smith and Jigba had 3 catches for 13 yards. Tyler Lockett only had 2. You know, like, it's just not how you win games. And especially going against a team, the youngest team in the NFL, the most inexperienced team in the NFL. I just expected more from them, and they obviously didn't do it. And all the credit in the world to the Rams coaching staff for creating a game plan to get these young guys to be able to compete with a team that was the number 1 offense in the league last year.
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks played the Lions and the Rams played the 49ers. Like I said, the Rams have 19 rookies on their roster. So Sean McVay is making some magic happen. But Total Pole Nation, Levels World Sports, this is it for all the NFL stuff. Obviously tonight, in an hour away, 50 minutes away, we have the Buffalo Bills versus the New York Jets. We'll probably preview that game afterwards. I mean, there's no point in waiting until tomorrow to do it. We can do it after the game, but there's no point in waiting. Get it fresh, get the minds right. We talk about Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen, so we will do a recap of Monday night's game tonight after the game. So you'll see us in the next 4 hours, but we both got the Bills winning that game. As far as for the Jets, offensive line issues, they're probably going to have to rely on running the ball more tonight and not as much throwing because of that Buffalo Bills defensive line. But this is Lambo's World of Sports featuring the Big Brother. We will be back tonight and we'll be back tomorrow to do some other topics. And Wednesday, we will start a recruiting video. We're going to go in the recruiting routes as well. We'll get all the insight and information. But for now, we'll be gone. Total Pole Nation, Lambo's World of Sports. We'll be catching you tonight, tomorrow,